All right, so the last video leaves you hanging on like what consequence Jem is going to receive, and there's actually a ton left in chapter 12 that is very important. So I want to make, I'm sorry, chapter 11, that's very important. So I want to make sure that we get to that. So Jem waits forever. You know how that is when you're in trouble and you're waiting for your parents to get home to deal with you. So he waits what he feels like is forever. And then Dad shows up, Atticus shows up, and he says, of course, you know, you've got to go over and apologize to her, which is like horrifying. But Jem goes to talk to her, and he says, I'm sorry, but I'm not, you know, he gives this apology. Later he'll tell Atticus, I said I was sorry, but it wasn't. Anyway, what Mrs. Dubose says that she wants more than Jem, like, working for her to clean it up, is for Jem to read to her every day after school. So now this really sucks, because that's, like, worse than detention, right? He's got to go over there, and he's got to read to her every day. So, anyway, that's, like, a big deal. He doesn't want to do it, but he has to do it because Atticus makes him. Scout says she'll go with him, so he's not so scared. So they start going over there, and every day Jem reads, and he reads these horrible things, and she's horrible to him. But at some point, an alarm goes off, and Jessie, Mrs. Dubose's like helper, comes in, rushes the kids out, and says, like, it's time for her medicine. You've got to go. And so they leave. What the kids realize, though, is that every day that they are there, they're there longer and longer and longer until one night Atticus actually beats them home from work. That's how long that they were there. And so as the reader, you're like, what is going on? Why is this alarm getting later and later? What is this medicine that she's taking? What's going on? So eventually, they're released. Mrs. Dubose has pointed out that the flowers have grown back, which is very symbolic. There's all kinds of symbols we could take out of this particular chapter. And so the kids are kind of like, they're dismissed, and they don't have to do this anymore. And then a month later, Atticus goes to Mrs. Dubose's house and comes home, and he tells Jem that Mrs. Dubose has passed away. She's dead. And then he reveals, he says, she's dead, son, said Atticus. This is page 147. She died a few minutes ago. Oh, said Jem. Well is right, said Atticus. She's not suffering anymore. She was sick for a long time. Son, didn't you know what her fits were? Jem shook his head. Mrs. Dubose was a morphine addict. She took it as a painkiller for years. The doctor put her on it. Okay, so what she was doing when he was reading is she was withdrawing from this drug. She was going through withdrawals, which also explains why she was so mean sometimes. So not what we thought. The drug was taking over, and she was very sick. So you might say, like, if she knew she was going to die, why would she get off this painkiller? And that's the point that Atticus makes, is like, she didn't have to do that. She could have died pain-free. But she wanted to die beholden to nobody. She wanted to die free. That was important to her, and Jem helped her to do that. She leaves Jem a gift. The last two pages of this chapter are pretty amazing. So, on 148, Jem says, did she die free, asked Jem. As the mountaineer, said Atticus. She was conscious to the last, almost. Conscious, he smiled, and cantankerous. She still disapproved heartily of my doings and said I'd probably spend the rest of my life bailing you out of jail. She had Jessie fix you this box. Atticus reached down and picked up the candy box. He handed it to Jem. Jem opened the box. Inside, surrounded by wads of damp cotton, was a white, waxy, perfect camellia, which is the flowers that he destroyed. It was a snow on the mountain. Jem's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Old hell devil! Old hell devil! He screamed, flinging it down. Why can't she leave me alone? In a flash, Atticus was up and standing over him. Jem buried his face in Atticus's shirt front. Shh, he said. I think that was her way of telling you everything's all right now, Jem. Everything's all right. You know, she was a great lady. A lady? Jem raised his head. His face was scarlet. After all those things she said about you, a lady? She was. She had her own views about things, a lot different from mine, maybe. Son, I told you that if you hadn't lost your head, I'd have made you go to read to her. I wanted you to see something about her. Okay, one of the best quotes of the whole book, page 149, if you want to go highlight it. I wanted you to see what real courage is. Instead of getting the idea that courage is a man with a gun in his hand, it's when you know you're licked before you begin, but you begin anyway. and you see it through no matter what. You rarely win, but sometimes you do. Mrs. Dubose won, all 98 pounds of her. According to her views, she died beholden to nothing and nobody. She was the bravest person I knew. Jem picked up the candy box and threw it on the fire. He picked up the camellia, and when I went off to bed, I saw him fingering the wide petals. Atticus was reading the paper. Page 149. Find that definition of courage. It's awesome.